hope you're having a great day. And today I'm going to bring you another true crime case involving a serial killer by the name of the shopping cart killer. And it's a very creepy case, one that the investigation is still ongoing, and investigators are still looking to see if they can find additional victims of the shopping cart killer. And the case happened along the East Coast in the United States and along the Commonwealth of the state of Virginia. And the person who has been arrested for committing the crimes is Anthony Robinson, who was 35 years old at the time of his arrest. And not a lot was found about his background. That's what investigators are still looking into, because he didn't really have a history of committing crimes that they found. And so they're still looking into more of his background. And the Fairfax County Police Department, that was the department that identified Anthony Robinson as the suspect in the Virginia killings. And what would happen was he would actually arrange meetings with women at motels, and then he would actually kill them there. So a lot of people use different dating sites, and that's one of the things that he used to prey on his victims, to find them. Two of the websites that he would use was one called Plenty of Fish, and then the other one was called Tagged, which I had never heard of the site Tagged before. I have heard of Plenty of Fish before. And the reason he was called, or is called, the shopping cart killer is because once he would kill his victims, he would move their bodies using a shopping cart, and then he would cause trauma to the body of his victims, which is what is the method of the killing. And then the Fairfax County Police Chief, Kevin Davis, said that Anthony Robinson left a gruesome trail of murder as far south as Harrisonburg, Virginia, and that's where two of the victims, ages 54 and 39, were discovered in November of 2021. So that happened last year. And the Harrisonburg Police Department in Virginia identified the two female victims that were found dead in an open lot, hidden in a trash can in a commercial district of the city of Harrisonburg. And then the Harrisonburg Police Department and Charlottesville Police Department had two separate missing persons investigations, which resulted in narrowing the focus to the open lot. Both women were discovered within a short distance of each other. Both were dead, but their deaths took place at two separate times. And then the police also obtained a video allegedly showing a man moving the bodies from one place to the next in a shopping cart. So that was one of the first things that they noticed for the mode that the suspect used. And then shortly after that discovery of the two women, police arrested, at the time, Anthony Robinson was a DC resident, in November of 2021, and then he was charged with the killings of Eileen Elizabeth Redmond, she was 54, and then Tanita Larice Smith, who was 39. He was arrested as a result of video surveillance and cell phone records that connected him to the two victims. And Elizabeth Redmond was from Harrisonburg, Virginia, and then Tanita Smith was from Charlottesville, Virginia. And Anthony Robinson, he is currently in custody. He's in jail in Rockingham County, Virginia. He was brought to custody after four bodies were found. And in September of 2021, there was another possible victim who was tentatively identified as 29-year-old Cheyenne Brown. She was found after going missing in Southeast DC and Washington, DC. And then the remains of a fourth victim, 21-year-old woman, were found in an isolated wooded area along Fairhaven Avenue in the Alexandria section of Fairfax County, Virginia. And again, authorities said there's possibly more victims. Kevin Davis, again, who is the chief of police, said he's already killed 4, and we suspect he has more victims. And Anthony Robinson preys on the weak, he preys on the vulnerable, and then does unspeakable things with his victims. And then a little bit more about Cheyenne Brown, again, who was 29. She was from Washington, D.C., and she took the metro from Washington, D.C. to the Huntington metro stop on September 30th in 2021. And then, unfortunately, she never returned after taking the metro. There was digital data that showed that she was in the 6100 block of Richmond Highway, possibly at the Moon Inn in Alexandria, Virginia, on the night of her disappearance. And homicide detectives used the assistance of a cadaver dog from George Mason University's police department. And they responded to the Moon Inn and that immediate area and conducted a search, but weren't able to locate Miss Brown or any evidence relevant to her whereabouts at that time. And then a search warrant was issued for cellular data after the video surveillance of the metro confirmed that Miss Brown and Anthony Robinson were at the same location on September 30th, the night of her disappearance. And then detectives have been working nonstop once they were notified of Miss Brown's disappearance in Fairfax County, Virginia. They determined that Miss Brown was communicating with Anthony Robinson using a dating website. And then again, a digital footprint was left by the offender, Mr. Robinson, and her. And then on December 15th of 2021, police did receive new information, and they returned to the area of Route 1 to expand their search. What they found was a Target shopping cart, and if you aren't familiar with the store Target, it's a store where you can buy clothing, anything from like home goods to food, so a place where you can go shopping. So the detectives observed a Target shopping cart in a vacant lot in a wooded area not far from the Moon Inn. It was across the street from the Moon Inn on North Kings Highway in the Alexandria portion of Fairfax County, Virginia. And then beside the shopping cart was a container. It was a large plastic container. When the detectives looked inside the container, they observed what appeared to be human remains. The medical examiner's office was contacted and then responded, along with an anthropologist with George Mason University, Dr. Falsetti. And then the initial analysis done on the scene confirmed what the detectives thought, which were likely human remains were inside the container. And then detectives from the homicide squad and the Metro Transit Police coordinated And then there's a multi-jurisdictional investigation where detectives thought it may even take them out of the state of Virginia. There's been a coordinated effort between different departments during the investigation, including Fairfax County Police Department in Virginia, Harrisonburg, the Metropolitan Police Department, and then during the investigation, again, the detectives tentatively believed the remains discovered in the container were that of Miss Brown, based on a distinct tattoo that she had on her body. They worked with the Department of Forensic Science for DNA testing to positively and scientifically confirm the body. And then the remains were not alone in the container. There was a discovery of another unknown, unidentified individual in the container. And then the state of the decomposition of the body was so bad that for the two victims that it was going to take time to identify the fourth victim. Detectives had leads about a missing person last seen in that area that they were following very closely. And again, the Fairfax County Police Chief, Kevin Davis, told reporters during a press conference that DNA evidence was used to identify Cheyenne Brown, who again, she was only 29, of Washington, D.C., and then Stephanie Harrison, who was only 48 and she was of Redding, California. And they were identified as the victims found on December 15th near the Moon Inn in Alexandria, Virginia. Kevin Davis said, "We believe Anthony Robinson, transported at least one victim in a shopping cart as well." And, he said, "We believe he transported at least one of our Fairfax County victims in a shopping cart as well," he said. And then the last person that Cheyenne Brown was seen alive with was Anthony Robinson, Chief Davis said. And then he said, "Robinson is the primary and singular suspect in the deaths of the third and fourth victims, Brown and Harrison, and criminal charges were expected against him in those cases." And police in Virginia said they may have found a fifth victim in Washington, D.C. at that time, who was found dead in a shopping cart in Washington, D.C. after police received a tip. And Fairfax County Police Major Ed O'Carroll said the woman was found only covered with a blanket. And then Robinson's potential involvement, again, is also based on digital evidence that put him in the same vicinity around the time of the victim's disappearance, O'Carroll said. And then the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department investigated that case. And in January of 2022, officials announced that they had connected the dots. They believed that Robinson was responsible for the murder of Sonia Champ, who was only 40, of Northeast Washington, D.C., who was found in a shopping cart near Union Station in D.C. on September 7th of 2021 in the 200 block of F Street Northeast near Stanton Park. And digital evidence such as cell phone records and online messages put Anthony Robinson in the vicinity of all 5 murders, according to the police. Again, with him using the dating websites that leaves the digital footprints. And authorities believe that he, again, met and targeted the women through online dating sites, lured them and met them at motels, and then murdered them via blunt force trauma. So that's definitely scary, just because a lot of people use different dating sites, and then people put information on the sites about themselves, and then it's hard to know truly if the person is telling the truth or what kind of person someone may meet, just because they're a stranger and you don't really know someone. And then Anthony Robinson would allegedly then put them in shopping carts, transport them to vacant lots, and often dump them in large trash cans. And then there remains concern that those 5 women aren't the only victims, so investigators are still gathering information to find out if there were additional victims or anyone who came into contact with Mr. Robinson, just to get more information and to see who else may have been victimized by him. And police, again, they tied him to the victims through dating apps, and they said, again, that he used the apps Plenty of Fish to lure the victims. And Cheyenne Brown had connected with him on that app, Chief Davis said. And then like in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that he also used the dating app Tagged. And Chief Davis said, "Our shopping cart killer does unspeakable things with his victims." And the FBI's behavioral unit was working with the Fairfax County Police, and Robinson, it was noted, had addresses from New York to Virginia, and then 35 different law enforcement agencies from New York to Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is Harrisonburg, Virginia is about 130 miles away from Washington, D.C. And then those 35 different law enforcement agencies have been looking at missing persons reports as part of the investigation. So there's a lot of different law enforcement agencies helping to investigate this case. And the Chief Davis said that we need any survivor who may have interacted with Robinson and escaped to contact them. And again, he said they believe there are survivors out there. On December 17th of 2021, Chief Davis told the world that they had a serial killer on their hands while giving him a nickname. He said, "Our serial killer is called the shopping cart killer." And he said that during a press conference. He said he's called that because he meets his victims on dating sites. He meets his victims then at hotels. After he inflicts trauma to his victims and kills them, he transports their bodies to their final resting place in a shopping cart. Reviewing previous recent homicides in the region, it became clear to police that one man was likely responsible for the murder of at least the 5 women who had been found in D.C., Alexandria, Virginia, and Harrisonburg, Virginia, over the course of several weeks. And then Anthony Robinson has an absence of a criminal history, which the police thought that was a little remarkable, just because he didn't just start doing these type of actions or killings, and they want to look into his background to see what else he may have done, but just may not have been found out about or have gotten in trouble for. And again, the police, with the absence of the criminal history, it says that's why detectives need help from his family, friends, associates, employers, neighbors, or anyone who can share a little light on Anthony Robinson's profile and where he's been over the last several years, because he was pretty transient and had many jobs over the years. When the detectives first looked at his criminal history and started their workup, the only thing that showed for his criminal history was the 4 charges for this case in Harrisonburg, and that includes the two murders and felony disposal of human remains. And then detectives have to work backwards to get information on him. They knew he was responsible for 4 deaths, but want to know what else he is responsible for. He is in custody, and they want to get more information about him, where else he's been, he's traveled to, where else he's worked, where else he has lived, and who else he has known in the other jurisdictions in between. Again, he has had addresses as far as New York to Prince George's County, Maryland, to Washington, D.C. And then he also traveled all the way down to Harrisonburg, Virginia. So detectives are investigating where else he's been. And then the detectives have been working with different jurisdictions to see if there are any other missing persons who meet the profile and his MO or modus operandi, to see if they can find anyone else. And then different requests have been going out through different fusion centers asking if they knew of any other missing person, to gather as much information as possible. And then Anthony Robinson, he does have an attorney who filed a motion in court asking the Virginia judge to place a gag order so that the police would stop using the moniker or nickname, the shopping cart killer, or further discussing the details of the case. And then his lawyers fear that this could prevent Robinson from getting a fair trial. In a statement to a local radio station, WTOP, a Fairfax County police spokesperson said that the county stands by its criminal investigation. Currently, Robinson is awaiting trial at Rockingham Harrisonburg Regional Jail without bond in Harrisonburg. His next court appearance in Harrisonburg or Rockingham General District Court is currently scheduled for September 12th of 2022. And then the charges against Robinson or the shopping cart killer in Fairfax County and DC will likely wait for the trial that will occur in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Sources familiar with the case told WTOP that based on available information and evidence, prosecutors believe the cases against Robinson and Harrisonburg are the strongest and that he will face trial there first. The sources added that convictions in Harrisonburg would provide more options for Fairfax County and DC prosecutors in considering their charging decisions. And so it's good that he's been captured just to help prevent any more murders that he would commit. And then the trial's coming up soon because it's August now, so that'll be here soon. The owner of the Moon Inn where Robinson would meet his victims did speak out. The owner's name is Nasir Wagi, says that the COVID-19 pandemic already made business difficult, but now with the investigation, he was trying to sell the property as soon as possible. He said nobody feels secure, even our employees right now. Police say that Robinson stayed at the hotel at least 6 times. And then the owner of the Moon Inn did give detectives a large plastic bag. He gave them large plastic bags full of thousands of receipts and lodging records to help police with the investigation. The police department is asking the public for help. And then if anyone has any information, please contact the Fairfax County Police Department Major Crimes Bureau. The phone number is area code 703-246-6666. 7800, option 2. Again, that is 703-246-7800, option 2. And then tips can also be submitted anonymously through the Crime Solvers program, and that number is 1-866-411-TIPS, or tips. Again, that is 1-866-411-TIPS, which is TIPS. They can also send a text and type the letters FCCS plus tip to 847-411. Again, you can text the letters FCCS plus tip to 847-411. And investigators said what they really need is information, again, about Anthony Robinson's previous contacts. Anyone who may have had contact with Robinson is asked to contact the Fairfax County Police, and rewards are available. Detectives are also working with the FBI and authorities in New York, the home state of Robinson, to get more information and to create a victimology profile to see who he may have targeted. And then again, they partnered with 35 agencies to determine whether any missing persons cases may be linked. So they're working very hard to try and gather as much information as possible. And Chief Davis said, Anthony Eugene Robinson has our undivided attention. We are leaving no stone unturned in regards to evidence. And Ed O'Carroll, again, the bureau chief of major crimes at Fairfax County Police Department, he said that they are horrible tragedies. The victims did nothing wrong. They were loved by family and the community. And then a little bit more about the victims. Eileen Elizabeth Beth May Redmond of Harrisonburg, Virginia. Again, she was 54. She studied at Bridgewater College and went to Turner Ashby High School and lived in Harrisonburg, Virginia. She was last seen on October 24th of 2021, and it was considered uncharacteristic for her to disappear. Since then, she had not been in contact with family, had not shown up for work, and had not returned to her apartment. Those close to her were concerned because it was reportedly out of character and very unlikely for her to miss her obligations. She was reported missing on October 24th of 2021 when she failed to show up for work and returned to her Harrisonburg apartment, according to Harrisonburg police. Redmond did not own a vehicle. She had been entered into the state and national database for missing persons as a missing and endangered person. And then again, she was last seen alive on or around October 24th and was reported missing to Harrisonburg police in early November. May, who lived with her mother in Harrisonburg, said it had been weeks since she had heard from her mother. There were no calls, no texts, no sign of Redmond on social media. Then came the November 23rd phone call. It was the detective telling her that they had found her mom's body behind Howard Johnson Hotel. And then the obituary for her says that she was born on June 30th of 1967 in Harrisonburg and was a lifelong resident of that community. She is survived by 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren, among other relatives. And then Tanita Larice Smith, 39, of Charlottesville, Virginia. She was called Nita. She was a mother of 6. She was 5'4", had brown hair and brown eyes. She was reported missing on November 19th of 2021 after last being seen in Charlottesville, Virginia on November 14th. She was also the aunt of Sage Smith, who went missing in November of 2012. Redmond's body, along with that of Smith, had been found in an open field behind a nearby motel, Harrisonburg Police Chief Kelly Warner said. The women who were found within a short distance of one another died at different times. And then again, surveillance footage and cell phone records connected Robinson to both victims, Warner said. And then Cheyenne Brown, 29, of Washington, D.C. Again, she was reported missing by Washington, D.C. police. She was last seen in the 200 block of 36th Street Southeast on Thursday, September 30th of 2021. She was described as 5 feet, 2 inches tall and weighing 130 pounds. And she was last seen wearing a burgundy Washington football team sweatshirt with black floral leggings and black shoes. Cheyenne Brown, who has a young son who was 7 years old, was about 4 months pregnant when she disappeared. And her family tentatively identified her body through a distinct tattoo that she had, which was her name and a lily on her right arm. The family actually believes that Cheyenne Brown had contact with Anthony Robinson in the weeks before she disappeared. A cousin of Cheyenne Brown, who confronted a man staying at the family's home with Brown in September, recognized a photo of Robinson after his arrest. She, which is her name is Nakadra Brown, said, "He was just in our house. I remembered his face." Nakadra Brown immediately notified police. Brown's cousin Jonathan Willis said he believes Robinson was the man who was with Brown in her home about 10 days before she disappeared. And then at that time, Willis made the man leave. He said he saw him over here like a day later, and I did the same thing, put him out again. Haven't heard nothing since then. Haven't seen him around here since then. Brown's mother wanted everyone to know that Cheyenne had a huge heart, and she was trusting and thought of everyone as her friend, Fairfax County Chief Kevin Davis said. None of these families, none of these families deserve to go through this, Brown's mother, Nakandra Brown, said. Not only, is my daughter gone, he took the life of my unborn grandchild. And then Stephanie Harrison, 48, of Redding, California, was a grandmother, and she had been on a sightseeing trip from her home in Northern California when she disappeared. She was last seen in contact with her loved ones on August 19th. And her last bank transaction was at the check-in at the Moon Inn. Bank records obtained by her sister showed she checked into the Moon Inn in Alexandria, Virginia, where Robinson was staying in the time frame of the murders. She went missing on August 19th of 2021 after a flyer from the Aware Foundation said she traveled to Washington, D.C. She was 5'5", had green eyes, and then her tattoos included a Playboy bunny outline on her ankle, and then she had brown hair. She had recently dyed her hair. And then her daughter said her mom would call her every day, 10 times a day, and her son 10 times a day. Her daughter said her mom was super family-oriented. She was a beautiful, kind soul. She put everyone before herself. She would drop anything she was doing if you called and needed her help. She would give you her last dime if you needed it. And then it was while authorities were searching for Brown that they spotted the missing persons posters with Harrison's face on them. When we found the body, we also found these random flyers on Route 1. Fairfax County Police spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said, And then according to the flyers, Harrison had schizophrenia and was off her medication before she vanished. She is very vulnerable and gullible in her mental state, the flyers stated. Harrison's sister, Joey Harrison, said Stephanie flew from California to DC to go sightseeing. She checked into the Moon Inn in August and then disappeared. Joey and Robinson and Stephanie were staying in separate rooms. Joey said Robinson and Stephanie were staying in separate rooms at the hotel. She said they did not know each other. When I think about my sister, I think about the life she lived. Joey Harrison said she was beautiful and vibrant. Harrison's daughter, Destiny, said she was a beloved mother and better grandmother. She helped everyone and would give anyone her last dime. Investigators flew to Reading to collect DNA samples from family members of Stephanie Harrison. And then DNA analysis led investigators to confirm the identities of Cheyenne Brown and Stephanie Harrison. And then the next victim, Sonia Champ, who was 40, is believed to be the fifth victim. Her body was found inside a shopping cart near Union Station. And then her death was previously classified as undetermined until Tuesday, June 14th of 2022. Now it has been determined to be a homicide or ruled a homicide by the medical examiner's office. And Robinson, again, is the sole person of interest in that case. September of 2021, authorities found Champ unresponsive and unconscious in the 200 block of F Street in Northeast DC. And a relative described Champ as an outgoing woman who loved her family. Champ's mother, Norma Hairston, described her daughter as a sweet person who often stayed to herself, but loved being around family and helping others. Hairston said in January of 2022 that news of Robinson's arrest brought some relief. She said, "I didn't know what she died from, none of that. I have closure now," she said at the time. "I'm at peace with it because I really know what happened to my daughter." And then again, if you have any information, please contact the Fairfax County Department of Major Crimes Bureau. And again, the phone number is area code 703-246-7800, option 2. Again, that's 703-246-7800, option 2. And then tips can be submitted anonymously through the Crime Solvers program at 1-866-411-TIPS. Again, that is 1-866-411-TIPS, or you can text it by typing the letters FCCS plus tip to 847-411. Again, you can text the letters FCCS plus tip to 847-411. And if you have any information, again, please reach out to investigators. And thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great day.